On this Friday morning after the president's speech last night at 5, a lot of American businesses are trying to figure out, okay, I've got more than 100 employees. What am I going to do? Am I going to require the vaccine? Let's talk to one business guy. Ben Shapiro is the host of The Ben Shapiro Show. He's also the editor emeritus of the Daily Wire. Ben, your company's got over 100 employees, so what are you going to do? Are you going to listen to the president? Everybody going to roll up their sleeves, or are you going to take a different approach?
Of course not. We're going to use every method and resource at our disposal to defy the president's unconstitutional order. And this is coming from somebody who's very pro-vaccine. I was vaccinated as soon as possible. I've encouraged everybody to get the vaccine, or pretty much everybody to get the vaccine. And the notion that the federal government has the ability to force every business in America with over 100 employees. By the way, I'm not sure why it's over 100 employees. Theoretically, it should be every business in America because you can get infected anywhere, right? But every business in America with over 100 employees to either force its employees to vaccinate or force them to test every week or fire them, presumably. He said he came into office saying, I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country. I'm going to shut down the virus. He failed to shut down the virus. So now he's going to shut down the economy and the country, apparently.
Well, Ben, they say that he says, Joe Biden, businesses who refuse will be fined $14,000 per violation. Your CEO said that you will use legal action to resist in a tweet. Are you prepared for this?
We are. I mean, we are staffing up right now on the legal side. We are already getting any lawsuit ready that needs to be gotten ready. We have to see the actual regulations, know the details of that lawsuit. What we can tell you is that the provisions that Joe Biden is going to be citing under OSHA are wildly overbroad. And frankly, I think that he's made a huge tactical legal blunder here. I think there's every possibility that something like this goes to the Supreme Court level, and suddenly we see a complete rewriting of the administrative state because Joe Biden couldn't get his act in order, and so he decided to issue a tyrannical and authoritarian order here.
Also, you had an interesting tweet, which is getting a lot of news, when you said maybe if we tell Joe Biden that the Taliban isn't vaccinated, he'll get just as mad at them. Does it astound you in all seriousness that his anger is focused on the unvaccinated in America, as small a percentage as that is, and not on the terrorist regime that has taken over a country and the embarrassment that he's caused our nation?
We're not even a year into this presidency, and this is a failed president on every level, and so he's attempting to redirect all of the ire at his presidency at your fellow Americans. You're supposed to be angry at your neighbor for unvaccinating if you're vaccinated, even though Joe Biden himself yesterday said that your unvaccinated neighbor effectively poses no threat to you. Instead, Joe Biden wants you to be angry at that neighbor as opposed to him. Here's the reality. If you don't like lockdowns, if you don't like mandates, look at the person who's attempting to issue the lockdown and the mandates, the person who's attempting to control American business top down, who's attempting to control every school in America top down. Maybe you should direct your ire at that person, not the person living next door.
Speaking of next door, you used to live in California. You have since moved to a freer state than that, a lower tax state as well. I wanted you to weigh in on the fact that coming up next week, they're going to have the recall election of Gavin Newsom in California. He very famously pretty much locked down all of California. Larry Elder is surging in the polls, but he was essentially accosted. Let's see, it would have been on Wednesday, Venice Beach, where a woman, screen right, in a gorilla mask with a pink wig, tries to hit him in the head with an egg. Watch this.
What's your reaction?
Here's Larry Elder last night on Tucker. Watch.
She might be one of the 20,000 people that were released early from our prisons, felons, many of whom were violent offenders under this governor. You know, if I were a Democrat, obviously, this would be called systemic racism. They'd be calling it a hate crime. I don't like to play that game. I do know this. There was a big article about me, a negative, in the New York Times. It never once mentioned that I'm black, never once mentioned that I would be the first black governor of California. I never made a big deal out about that. I don't want people to vote for me or against me because I'm black. But on the very same page of the New York Times, there was a big article about the, quote, first female governor of New York, close quote. Even though she didn't get elected, she was basically appointed because the other governor resigned. So they cared about the first when it was a female Democrat, but couldn't give a rip about the first when it was a black Republican.
And Ben, you know, there seems to be a double standard in this country when it comes to conservatives.
Well, of course. I mean, if Larry Elder were a Democrat, we know it would have been front page news. There would have been talk about how this white woman throwing an egg at a black man was just evidence that nothing has changed over the past 150 years. But because Larry's a Republican and Larry's a conservative/libertarian, this means that Larry's the actual white supremacist, according to op-ed writers for the Los Angeles Times. And the woman who is throwing eggs at him while wearing a gorilla mask is an anti-racism activist. It's very strange how none of the standards seem to hold as soon as the target is a conservative.
Do you, I mean, if Larry Elder is leading amongst the 40-plus who are trying to be there should he be recalled, but are you amazed at $70+ million that poured in, the president, the vice president coming into campaign, Elizabeth Warren? Are they getting panicked?
And they're certainly scared. I mean, Gavin Newsom has poured 10 times the amount of money as Larry has into this campaign to prevent himself from being recalled in a state that is entirely Democratic. Remember, there is a supermajority in the legislature for Democrats. It's essentially a one-party state, and now Gavin Newsom is in danger of being recalled, which just demonstrates how a guy who is widely perceived as a possible presidential nominee in the future has now collapsed in on himself like a dying star because he's been such a poor governor of the state, and all of the bad governance over the past 10 years, the same stuff that drove me and my company out of the state, is now coming back to haunt the Democrats.
Yeah. So, Ben, there's a whistleblower inside Google that's reportedly saying they're undergoing anti-racism training, white supremacy training, and or to how to prevent being a white supremacist. It features you at the base of this pyramid. It's called the white supremacy pyramid. Features you at the base before it works its way up to different individuals. What is your reaction to this?
It's pathetic that the most powerful company on planet Earth, because Google is the most powerful company on planet Earth in terms of informational dissemination, is purveying misinformation and lies to its own employees. And it's just demonstrative of the fact that corporations have gone woke because they are filled with cowards who are afraid of the radical left, because there's nothing remotely related to reality in this presentation. I am an Orthodox Jew. I've been extraordinarily outspoken against white supremacy to the point where the FBI had to arrest somebody 2 years ago for threatening my family, a white supremacist. Nonetheless, Google pushing this kind of stuff just demonstrates what utter yellow-bellied cowards they are. It's unbelievable.
Well, Ben, have you noticed? Okay, so that's what they're doing with their training of their employees. But when it comes to Google, the search engine, has their algorithm impacted you or your business?
Well, it sort of depends on the timing. So there have been problems with Google in the past where the way that their search algorithm works is that results that are unflattering to conservatives come up pretty regularly, or they had a Google fact check for a while that was specifically directed only against conservative outlets, not just mine, but others like the Daily Caller or Breitbart. We do have to cope with this from time to time, and none of that is really a surprise to anybody on the right side of the aisle.
All right, Ben, best of luck. We'll see how this goes. And again, we're all vaccinated, you're vaccinated, but finding people, demanding and berating unvaccinated is un-American, and there's going to be legal action. Ben Shapiro, thanks so much.